Hey everybody, welcome back to Gardens, the Untold Story. I'm your host, Ken Somerville, my co-host, Andy Lopez. And we have a special guest today, Darryl Cobb from Aquarius Systems, which is water, of course. And Andy, you take it away because, Darryl is your friend.
Hi, Darryl. Hi, Ken. So welcome, Darryl. Now you know what.
Can't hear you there, Andy.
Excuse me. What? I can't hear you. Say it. There you go.
Can you hear me, Darryl?
Yeah, I can hear you, Ken.
Okay, good.
You're muted, Andy.
I am.
Yeah, Andy, check your mic settings.
Yeah. I got the mic here. I don't see anything.
If it doesn't work, jump off and jump back on. It'll reset. I've had this problem. I've actually reached out to StreamYard, but Andy, if you can hear me, jump off, jump back on.
I kept it. Let's see how I would do that. Yeah.
How Andy would
maybe I can respond to his questions right now while he's not on the mic.
Yeah. Okay, well, guys, Andy just I'm not sure if he knows what he's doing when he's jumping off.
Well, it's entertaining anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
as long as we've had this problem a couple of times on StreamYard where, the mic settings when we come in from the back end hasn't been working properly. I've reached out to them to see what's going on, but you just never know.
No, that's frustrating.
It is, but hey, it's the fun of live streaming, Darryl. But you're in California down with Andy, and you're working with a lot of Andy's clients setting up water systems, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. The idea is to dechlorinate and get all the primary contaminants out of the water so that the microbiome in the soil can thrive without being killed with chlorine and all the other nasty stuff in the water. And so that's a good step in the right direction. It's certainly going to help.
Hallelujah.
Oh, here he comes, and he's still mute.
You can't hear me?
Doggone it.
Okay, I can hear him. Okay, Darryl, maybe it's your end that's not connecting with him. So
okay,
if you can jump off and jump back on, we'll see
how
if that works.
How do I do
that? The red button at the very bottom of the screen.
Okay.
Just click on that and then just hit the link and come back in.
Gotcha.
So Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Andy, and I think you can hear me. So
anyway, water is a big issue. It always has been a big issue.
Yes.
Even from the very beginning, when I started doing this business, I went to a hardware store and made my own water filter so I could plug it into the hose as a kid, because I knew that it's not I wanted rainwater. I really was into rainwater. It catch rain barrels, right? Rainwater. The big difference. I didn't know about microbes, but I felt I could smell it. So when I make mixtures in rainwater, definitely a big difference in mixture in city water. Oh, you're back.
All right, I can hear you now.
Okay, can you hear me as well?
Yes.
What did I say?
I'm born in an alien environment. Yeah, that's what Andy says all the time. Yeah.
So anyway, Darryl. So folks, this is my waterman from my city where I live. We both live in Malibu, California, and this is where I do my business from. And it's taken me quite a few years to get him on board because, I never pushed the issue of water with people. And so in my old age, that's right. Number one, that's the first thing. You have to get this water thing down. So let's talk a little. So tell me a little bit about your business. How long you been? 2002, was it? 2001?
Well, I've been at it since roughly 06.
2006?
Yeah. And joined the Water Quality Association and started studying. And I was a pool man in my 20s, so I understood hydrology and water chemistry. I had the basics down, and getting into residential water treatment is vastly more complex than maintaining a swimming pool.
Yeah.
And in order to become a certified water specialist, which I accomplished that, 15 years ago, something like that. I'm like level 4 now. It goes up to 6. So I'm pretty good at studying stuff and passing tests because I buckled down and I really want to retain all of it. But the majority of the chemistry and other aspects of it, I couldn't even have a conversation with somebody because they wouldn't understand what I was talking about. They kind of glaze over when you start getting into the kinetics and things of chemistry and how it works. How does ion exchange work? I love talking about that stuff, but people glaze over pretty quick unless they've got some chemistry background or they work in water treatment, and then they're on the same page. But I try to keep it all in very plain English, and that really has a bigger impact. Just talk plain English, and I can geek out on the chemistry. I love that, and so pretty much anything you throw at me, I can give you a technical answer.
I think what we need to do is, from my point of view, I've always known that there are chemicals in the water, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get the definite idea that there's no way there cannot be chemicals. I also remember in my past they wanted to fluorate the water, right? Because there was so much of other bacteria. Yeah, all kinds of stuff is going reason for them to do that. And I know I was pretty sure it's not fluoride, because I remember I'm really old, so I remember in my past brain that they put some chemical in the water supposed to be good for your teeth. Was I wrong?
That's fluoride, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that was a reasoning. I think that's where first I heard about chemicals in the water. They're adding this fluoride to the water, so when we drink it, it helps our teeth, right? And that was the earliest. What year do you think that was?
Well, my take on that is I prefer zero fluoride, because once you start researching it, people that have naturally high levels of fluoride in their water have very brittle bones and teeth. So how does it make it stronger if it's making it brittle? And fluorosis is another thing. I think there's a couple areas in England that have really high naturally occurring fluoride. And your teeth are about as strong as a piece of chalk. They crumble and they have an odd coloration. So
sound good.
That's when you have higher levels of fluoride in there. I mean, they try to keep it at less than 2 parts per million under the maximum contaminant levels, but it could vary. But generally, when I look at a water quality report coming from any particular water district, I'm just hoping that the assay that was taken properly and that those levels are actually accurate. And what else do I go on? I mean, it costs a little bit of money to do a proper assay. I use a lab back east that I've used for the whole time I've been doing this. Usually it's well water samples that I send in, because city water is a relatively known thing. It's going to be within certain parameters. And so it's you don't have to overthink it. But with well water, you need to know exactly what's in it. And well water can change over time. I had a client up on the top of Decker, and they have a vineyard there. They have a very productive well, but the water was good. It was naturally soft, and it had other good minerals in there that were good for you. But it had like 400 parts per million of colloidal silica, which has a tendency to turn the inside of your pipes into glass. It will actually, you will have a coating of glass on the inside of your pipes. And that stuff is extremely difficult to get out. And so we put a system in there that handled it pretty well. And here we are 10, 11 years later after I installed it, and sent in a recent water test, and there's no colloidal silica in it. None, where it had very high levels 12 years ago. So well water will change. You can't go off of the report that you got 20 years ago, because you might have creeping nitrates coming in and all kinds of stuff. I mean, mostly in the Santa Monica Mountains, you've got sulfur bacteria. It's an iron-eating bacteria. It smells like rotten eggs and very hard. There's one up on Encinal that has like 2,800 parts per million, where if you've got 450 parts per million, like one of my clients in Oxnard, that's extremely hard water. That's like 25 grains of hardness. It's definitely going to screw up your fixtures and stick to everything. So, when you have water that hard, you want to go with old school ion exchange and actually trade a sodium ion for a calcium or magnesium ion. And then the chlorides stick on the resin in the tank, and then gets flushed down the drain when you backwash. So it's really chlorides that are the nuisance, where, certain cities like Santa Clarita, they banned softeners outright because they were worried about the chlorides that were affecting, agriculture downstream. So there's ways around that. There's other ways of mitigating the mineral hardness, but for the soil's sake, all we're doing is hitting it with carbon. You don't need to work on the aesthetics of the water, because the dirt don't care if there's minerals sticking to it. As long as your microbiome is happy and functioning, it'll handle pretty much anything that's there. It knows what to do when you have a proper amount of mycorrhizae, which will break down minerals into the right oxidative state where the plant can hold it and retain it, and then it's actually a bioavailable nutrient when you eat it.
Yep.
Okay, so taking pills, even really top quality ones, those minerals aren't necessarily getting absorbed unless they're in the correct oxidative state. So, there's a lot to it, but when the soil's healthy and the microbiome of the soil is doing its job, it knows what to do. Nature is smart. And so, if you get rid of the primary nuisance in there that's killing the microbiome, you want to stop that from occurring, and then the microbiome is going to fix itself and adjust itself.
Talk a little bit about that. I want to know, that's always been my concern, because I know it's not a closed system. I know a few customers that have ordered a water filter, right, from a water company. That was before I was dealing with you, and that water company said, "We know you live in Malibu, and you should add that city." Every city has their own things that they add to their city water, and every state's different too. So it's not just one thing. There seems to be a mixture. But this particular city happens to have this chemical to the water, so you have to get this filter to filter out that chemical. And then another part of the city, because it's really got two different water systems here, I think, right? One's from LA, and the other one's we have their own water company over here, right on this side of town, and they have a different laws about what goes in the water. And so my thing has always been that I really don't know what's in the water. No idea.
I mean, you're District 29, like down by Pepperdine. You're getting that from that water district. But you go up towards Trancas, you're dealing with a whole different water company. If you know anybody in the condos there at County Line, they get stinky water if they go out of town for a little while and they didn't have the sacrificial anode in their water heater working correctly, which is supposed to handle that. There's a little bit of sulfur bacteria in that water. And I've talked to the main guy with that water company. They're based out of San Luis Obispo. And he's like, nope, it's within the MCLs. We're good. We're legit. And I wanted to know, like, why aren't you addressing that sulfur bacteria in there? You could handle that. But anyways, they're not making them do it because it's within the maximum contaminant levels. But, I've had lots of condo owners there that have that stinky water problem, and there's workarounds for it. But yeah, it's the same town, just next water district up. So
when I lived up Deer Creek, which is just a little bit further north, I still would be within that water district. But I was getting city water, but they have pipe, and I was also getting well water. And the well water I actually like better than the city water. I really don't know why, but I felt when we were drinking, I wasn't getting a filtration system in the house for drinking, and I really didn't like the plastic, so I tried to stick to drinking the well water, which tasted fine to me. It tasted pretty good. I watered my plants with it, the animals. I had some goats and chickens and stuff. Everybody and my dog, everybody drank from it. It wasn't even, I think it was, somebody said it was hard, a little on the hard side. Does that make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm trying to do is to make people aware about if water is not clean, it's going to really, like you said, as long as it doesn't destroy the biome of the soil, the biology of the soil. And that's always been my concern, that the biology of soil is really being adversely affected. It's already being adversely affected by chemical fertilizers that people apply to the water, or maybe they actually use it, they add it to water and use it that way. There are lots of things entering the water system and I'm very cautious about what it's in each city. I was in Brentwood. I think that's a different water district over there. And so I was a gardener for 20-something years, and my instincts would be to bring my water filter with me and hook up to the hose, and I'll be watering the plant with it.
That works. I mean, you could put a carbon inline cartridge on the end of your hose as long as you understand the flow rate. And if you blow it through there too fast, it's not going to remove very much. But it basically, it doesn't physically remove it. It just changes the state of that molecule. So the chlorine molecule, it gets an electron nicked off of there from the carbon, and it basically destroys that molecule. It becomes benign at that point.
So, I do a spraying service, and to me, I go to people's homes and I have to use their water. I've gone through a wide variety of water issues happening when I use their water. And I mean, I'm doing this 30, 40 years, 50 years now, some ridiculous length of time. So in the early days, I remember that my liquid would foam up when I added water to it. It was just foam, really nice and foamy, and I could feel it. And especially if I made it overnight and I screw up the next morning, you go, oh, it smells ready, right? But when I used certain places, no foaming, nothing would happen.
That's one of the old school tests to see how hard your water is with I like to use Dr. Bonner's glycerin soap, but take a couple mason jars and you fill one with water that did not go through a softener. And then I did a demonstration for a client recently. They said that the softener didn't feel as soft anymore, so we did some adjustments on it. But I showed them, like, you could, with a TDS meter, you're going to have the same level of TDS because you're trading one ion for another. It's ion exchange.
What is TDF?
Total dissolved solid. So it's a meter that you stick in there, and it's going to go parts per million. And then to figure out grains per gallon, you divide by 17.2, and then you get that is your grains per gallon number. But if you have hard water, you're not going to get any soapy lather at all. If you have soft water, you're going to get an abundance of foamy, soapy water. And one of the aesthetic things about softened water is a lot of people think, oh, the soap's not coming off. I feel slippery. Well, that's not really what's going on. It is rinsing off. It's also dissolving some of the layers of, soap buildup on your skin and on your hair. And so the benefit of the softened water is great. I mean, it's great for hair and skin and dishes and everything else. But, it's not always the most practical choice because some people can't stand that slippery feel. But to me, that slippery feel is not like, oh, I got soap on me. It's like, no, I understand what it's doing. It's actually working. My skin feels softer.
Yeah, the kind of water I've got now. Let's answer this question here. Anyone with a well should be testing quality, their water quality by a lab. How often should that be done? Like, I'm on a well. I've been on a well, for the 16 years I've been on my property. And I'm doing it for 5 years. Every
100 years seems like a good.
I don't know. I would say about every 5. I mean, you can get a real proper assay done for a few $100. You're going to check for the main nasty things that are harmful. And you don't have to check everything on the periodic table. And it's unlikely that a lot of that stuff's even in there at a harmful level. But you want to look for nitrates. You want to look for manganese. High levels of manganese causes Parkinson's symptoms. And manganese is present in a lot of wells. I was trying to address one up in Ojai, and they didn't want to do what needed to be done because it wasn't cheap. And they later got blood tests, and the owner of the property has Parkinson's. His daughter has elevated manganese in her blood, and I'm like, you guys, just use the water for your plants. Just water your gardens with it. Don't be bathing in it. Don't be drinking it. You got a city water line. Just use that and pay the damn water bill, or pay me to put all this equipment in. We'd have to have a special media that it goes through called catalox, and then you go through an oxidizer, either chlorine or peroxide, that's injected into it, and you actually remove it at significant levels. But if you just put a little ozonator in there and think you're doing something, not so much. You can remove it with ozone, but you got to know your flow rate and gallons per minute, and you got to do the math on it to size it correctly. And so it's a manageable thing, but this equipment and time costs money, so not everybody's willing to spend that if they had free water forever and like, well, I ain't dead yet, but
So it seems like it seems like the issue is also, because you mentioned it in there, there's so many different things that people could do, and not all of it the best. And so how do you know if you have somebody that doing the right thing with the right equipment, getting the chemicals out, or it's just doing something else and not really doing very much at all? You're thinking you have clean water.
Yeah, well, I mean, I try to go by known standards. Okay, I don't want to be completely fringe on everything, even though I kind of am fringe on stuff. But I like to walk in both realms. I want to understand what all the woo-woo stuff is, and all the crystals and bells and all that stuff. Totally down with that. But can that provide empirical evidence? Can you demonstrate and show, yes, in fact, here's a control sample, here's another one, here's the measurable actual result? I'm not going to make a claim unless I can do that. I can suggest that some things couldn't hurt, or heck yeah, that's helpful, that's a good idea, but I'm not going to say it's going to do this for you. So I try to not misrepresent anything, really, and keep you in a safe parameter without going overboard. I mean, after the Palisades fires, one of my clients was like, oh my God, there's forever chemicals in the air and everywhere, and we're all going to get sick. And she had somebody come up and get some water tested, and came back with some results and recommendations. And it's, you're not out there doing it unless you're trying to generate sales. Everything's a business. And what was being stated was that the levels of certain things that had measurable amounts in it, oh my God, you've got this in your water, you got to get this whole house RO system to take all that stuff out. And I responded to the client after comparing his assay and what those numbers were to the MCLs. It's like, okay, you see that decimal point? Okay, here's what the Fed says is a safe range. Okay, you see how many points over that decimal is on this guy's stuff? Okay, this is nano traces. It's so tiny. It's highly unlikely that it's going to have a negative impact on any living thing over its lifetime. So it's moot. I mean, it's not even worth addressing. But hey, if you can go, hey, look at this stuff, you've got it here. I'm not down with that. I feel that's a bit misleading and unethical.
So I'm glad you brought up forever chemicals. So that's another issue too. There's two things about water that I really want to get a hold of, because there's microplastics and forever chemicals.
Yes.
And what I'm really trying to talk about is the soil, because the water is what getting it to the soil. But at the end is microplastics and chemicals in the soil is what that I really want to understand, and also how they're getting it. I mean, it's not coming from the rain, so the microplastic has to be coming. But I think the major source of it is the water that's going onto the soil. The sprinklers are going out, and they have to. My instincts are telling me it's full of microplastics and forever chemicals. Am I really off?
Well, they're definitely present, but again, at what levels, and what levels are going to actually cause harm over an extended period of time. A lot of stuff they haven't done any research on. Nobody paid for a test, so those things are unknown at this point. They're definitely everywhere. Once you get into nanoparticles of stuff,
it's in the rain as well.
It's in the rain. It's in everything. It's in the flesh of fish and everything else. I mean, it's in hog feed. Oh my God, they feed hogs garbage now. So I don't even want to go there, but Yeah, it's definitely a present thing, and it's a nuisance. And you can shower in water that still has traces of things in it, and it's all about, is this molecule going to break the blood brain barrier? Is it going to absorb dermally and have a negative impact? Is it going to enter my bloodstream? Some molecules won't. Like the fluoride ion's not going to affect you dermally, but how about if you're breathing steamy fluoride vapors? So I'm like, oh,
Yeah, getting in your
yeah,
lungs.
that's definitely going to get into your system there. So, um, whole house carbon filtration is not going to address fluoride. It's too small. The only way you're going to get that out is through distillation or reverse osmosis. There's some great filtration systems out there. Nanofiltration it's a ceramic media, and it gets down to submicron levels, but you know, it's still there in an ionic form. So, um, reverse osmosis, that's going to get everything out of there. Distillation is even more effective because it'll get dissolved gases out of your water. You could have high levels of CO2, and that's going to turn into carbonic acid and lower the pH, and you're going to have acidic water. And that can take place over a short period of time.
What about drugs like medicine, vaccines?
Well, yeah, that's in there too. They're finding Viagra and cocaine and all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, party time. Yeah.
Well, in infinitesimally small amounts, you're not going to get a buzz off of it, or
No, but it's small amounts to me. See, I like you. I'm pretty sure you studied the homeopathic method, and which is really small amounts are the most effective. So small amounts of these little chemicals can be. It's not. It's misleading to think it's small amounts because it's all you need. A tiny small amount to get a reaction in our body and in the soil. But if you have a tiny small amount and you do that on a regular basis, like say in the soil is going to have a larger amount, or the water is going to end up with a larger amount over time. Doesn't that make sense? A small, on a regular basis, all of a sudden it goes up to a larger amount and a larger amount. And for me, that's what my body is saying. I am collecting this stuff. I'm getting more and more into my body, into my brain over time now than ever before.
Yeah.
And water is a primary source of it coming in.
Mm-hmm. The body knows how to get rid of stuff as long as you know how to eat and how to do cleanses properly and what substances to use that will help chelate and other binders like charcoal and other things, psyllium husk, and I like to use bentonite. It's a colloidal clay. So there's great stuff out there to keep your gut biome healthy. You keep your gut biome healthy, everything else, you're taking a load off of everything else, because your liver and kidneys have to work overtime if your gut's all screwed up. And if at a metabolic level you're not functioning correctly, it's going to make it more difficult too. And there's a lot of substances that we're exposed to chronically that are definitely going to have a metabolic effect. And so, don't drink out of plastic, just get everything in glass. Other things, don't ever use a microwave. Don't put plastic in a microwave, because you're creating
all these things people need to know, because that's what they do all the time, 24/7.
Yeah, and even I love, if I'm tired and I'm not down with chopping and prepping food, which I usually do every night. I mean, I prep and fix all my own food. It's all organic. I've been eating like that for probably 15 years. I used to be about 60 pounds heavier, and all I did was stop eating garbage, and now I'm like my high school weight without even trying. So, that's a metabolic thing. And by cutting certain stuff out of my diet, my body corrected itself. I used to break out in hives. I wasn't sure what the heck that was about. I was taking Benadryl for way too long. I'd have this stress reaction and break out in a rash. And I just went, okay, stop everything. What am I putting in my body? I need to address this. And I did. And it sucks initially, because you're going to have cravings because of pica, which is mineral deficiency. Animals do this. If you don't feed your animals correctly, they're going to start chewing up the fencing in the corral. So horses will do that, cattle will do that. They're going to be nibbling and gnawing on stuff, trying to get minerals because it's deficient in their diet. And, you know, if your metabolism's screwed up and your gut biome screwed up, it's very similar to the soil. I mean, if you're putting the right stuff in and making sure the bad stuff is not put in, it's going to adjust itself and it'll self-correct.
So let me ask you a question. So this is, and I'm glad you're like the scientist in the group here, because I'm not a scientist, I'm just a gardener. But my feelings is that whenever I go to a place and I'm trying to heal the trees and the plants to make them grow, there's a big difference between filtered water and unfiltered water that's going into the property.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to relate to that. Okay, so something's in this water that's not helping this soil,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's what this whole filtration system thing is all about. You know, trying to get the. I still don't know what exactly is in the water, other than there are some things you mentioned, and I have no idea what's in the water, other than the soil biologist does not like it, especially if it's being applied 4 or 5 times a week, whatever, forever, right? So there's something going on in that water that's really. I would think right off the bat the fluoride would you think the fluoride be good for the biology or not? It's not.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily the major villain here. I think what we're dealing with, what a lot of water districts do now is by adding ammonia to the mix. Okay, so HTH, that's the form of chlorine that you put in your swimming pool. Okay, it's the standard that's used here. In Japan and Germany, they use chlorine dioxide to sanitize the municipal water. And both countries have extremely high water quality standards for not only potable water, but for swimming pools. I mean, German swimming pool water standards are better than our drinking water standards. So,
Go figure.
yeah, and they're using chlorine dioxide, which does not create disinfection byproducts. And because HTH chlorine, when it does what it's supposed to do, when it's killing things in the water, you're going to have what's called disinfection byproducts. And with the HTH form of chlorine, you're going to get primarily haloacetic acids, and there's also trihalomethanes. Or I'm sorry, I got that reversed. It's primarily the trihalomethanes that are the villain that they want to reduce, because those are known carcinogens. There's hundreds of them in that class of chemistry. And so in order to get the trihalomethanes down, let's just create chloramines instead. So by adding ammonia, you create chloramines, which is what it smells like at the public pool when there's 150 kids in it. It burns your eyes. That's ammonia plus chlorine in its reactive state, and it's nasty stuff. It's very aggressive on different materials, plastics, O-rings, things like that. They degrade and break down way faster in the presence of the chloramines. And the chloramine has, it's almost like a halide. It has like this little membrane around it, and it's very stable. And it has killing power for a long time, so it's a lot less expensive to create chloramines, but it's a bear to get rid of. I mean, it'll wipe out regular granular coconut carbon, GAC, granular activated carbon. Chloramines will beat that up and take its lunch money really quick. And it's only going to be effective for a couple of years, and then you're going to start smelling and noticing chlorine. But there's
I have a question. A lot of cities, I mean, up in Canada, and we have cities that are actually injecting chloramine. We used to only be, the chlorine, and we could just, let the water sit before we would give it to plants. Is there a way to get rid of chloramine as a home grower to, volatilize it off, or, what should a person do if we want to use that water?
Well, on the cheap, you just get a transparent plastic tank. Ultraviolet light is going to deplete chlorine really fast.
Okay.
And chloramines too. back in my pool guy days, every year I had to put about 5 pounds of ceranic acid in there, which is kind of like a sunscreen for chlorine. Because otherwise, during the heat of the summer, you're going to be dosing like you won't make any money. All of it's going to all that chlorine you're putting in. So they have a stabilizer to keep the chlorine in the water. Sunlight will dissipate it. So if you're in an ag situation and you're using chlorinated water, just let the sunlight hit it for a few days and do a test strip and check the chlorine levels, or a old school pool test kit with the reagent drops, and just see what you got going on there. And it's most of those reagents aren't specific. They're going to test chloramines as well as other different things as well. So it's going to give you your total chlorine reading. But yeah, sunlight will do it. But the best approach is always carbon, because it's going to disassemble that chlorine molecule and make it neutral.
So run it through a carbon filter then.
Carbon filter.
Yeah. So with chloramines and how difficult that stuff is to get rid of, there's a different type of carbon known as catalytic carbon, and it's twice as much money as regular GAC carbon, but you're going to get a lot longer life out of that. Like a typical 2 cubic foot tank, I suggest changing the media every 5 to 8 years, and that's with catalytic carbon. With regular granular activated carbon, you'll get 4, maybe 5 years out of it before you start noticing a little chlorine breaking through. So you always want to go with a catalytic carbon. If it's definitely chloramines that we're dealing with, you want the catalytic carbon. And
so do you think that the same system that we're putting it for the whole house filtration system is the same for the whole property, or does it have to be changed because you want to be doing it, to the soil instead of to people, drinking and bathing in it?
Well, I mean, having a cross connection between your irrigation and your potable is generally not a good idea. You want to have it separated with some backflow prevention equipment. As long as that's in place, you're going to be fine. If it's installed correctly, you could pull that off.
So you can use it for both. You can use it for the house as well as for the property, for the soil.
But you have a pressure regulator going to the house. It's usually going to stay around 80 psi-ish. Most of the equipment's rated for up to 125. But if you don't have a pressure regulator, you want to put a high-low gauge. It's a gauge that will give you the reading right now. And then if in the middle of the night when nobody's using water, the pressure starts creeping way up, you'll see how high that gets. So you don't want to be, having equipment failures and leaks because the pressure's way too high. So it's usually best to separate the two systems. But in some instances, you can combine them as long as there's backflow prevention. And you're going to want generally a higher PSI going to your irrigation than you do your house, because you don't want those little water supply lines into your
sink. Is that pounds per square inch?
Yes. Yes. So you want to keep the house safe. The weak link is always the supply lines, the little flex hose that goes to the toilet. I mean, if you're running over 100 PSI, it's scary. I mean, one of those could blow. So you don't want to do that to somebody's house. Like, oh, let's just bypass the regulator and hit the whole property. I wouldn't suggest that.
So a person would be, because I wanted to be a little clear about this, because I'm still feeling that there should be two different standards, even though you apply. In other words, the water you use in your house and the water you use on your property. What are they the same identical standards that you would do, or would you have to do it in the garden a little differently?
Well, I'd base it on flow rates. Okay, you want to size it correctly. You want to figure out.
No, I don't mean that. I mean the filtration system. What you'll be using, like activated charcoal, is enough for the garden as well as it is for your home, right?
Well, it depends on the source water. If they're chlorinating, you definitely want to use catalytic carbon, and 99% of what I install is catalytic carbon. If you were doing like a triple big blue system, the big blue 4x20s, okay, Those cartridge systems work great. There's situations where you can't backwash anywhere, so you need a static system. And when you have a static carbon filter, if you have like a 2 cubic foot tank and it's just in and out, there's no backwashing. There's lots of those out there, but you got to realize you're accumulating. Everything that goes in that tank stays in that tank. And once a year, you can disconnect it, reverse the flow, and purge that and do basically a backwash on it manually. But I like an automated one that does it, however many weeks.
Where does the backwash go?
Well, if you're not also softening, if there's no chlorides that's going to harm plants involved, it can backwash right back into the garden. It's just slightly dirty water. It's not going to hurt anything.
So what is it that is collecting that makes it slightly dirty water? I thought it was a filter that's filtering something out.
Well, no. When you're backwashing, it lifts and agitates the bed and reverses the flow, and so you're gonna drain out the sediment that's been accumulating in that carbon tank.
And what is that?
Say that again?
What's the sediment?
Anything that's in your incoming water.
That's what I mean. So if there's toxins in incoming water, wouldn't that be toxic too?
Well, it's going to get neutralized by the carbon, depending what we're talking about.
Neutralized by the carbon.
Right, but I'm talking about actual dirt, frogs, logs, sticks, twigs, anything that's in that water, because it came down the aqueduct. There might be God knows what floating in it.
Aren't there like isn't there just more than charcoal? Don't you also use reverse osmosis as well through the filtration system, or you only need one? You don't need the reverse osmosis?
Well, one method is to simply put a sediment cartridge, get a dual gradient 5/50 micron. It'll get down to 5 microns. 50 microns is the thickness of a human hair. So 5 microns tiny. You can't even see that. So it's going to get down to 5 micron. And depending on your source water, like I have commercial water dispensing appliances that I install for these big construction companies where they fill their 5-gallon water coolers. And one particular site in Linwood, which is a low-tech space based on the residential there, but a lot of industry there. So they're not going out of their way to maintain stuff. So the line feeding this industrial property, it's old galvanized pipe, and it's the darkest color brown I've ever seen. I'm changing cartridges every 3 months there because the water's just the worst. It's nasty, and there's a massive 2-inch line going into, it's a 3-inch line going into this building, old galvy pipe. They're not going to pay for me to filter right as it comes into the building, which would be great if they did, but all they're trying to do is get away from spending astronomical amounts for plastic bottles of water for their crew, and then they got to hire guys to just do nothing but pick up water bottles so there's not plastic bottles all over the freeway they're trying to build. So now they fill the old school igloo coolers with purified water, and they got an ice maker right there, and they're happy campers. I got a new order for one at a new site they're opening up, so they love that. But the source water down there is nasty. So by simply putting a dual gradient sediment cartridge in front of your filter system, let's say you've got a static carbon filter, you got a big tank, but it doesn't backwash. Put a 4x20 sediment in front of it and change that thing once a year, and you're not going to have sediment that's otherwise going to dirty up that carbon bed.
Should I be using that for my garden if I'm using city water? Should I be going that far, or do I need to go that far?
I wouldn't say so. As long as it's going through a bed of catalytic carbon, if you've got chloramines, go for it. I mean, think of a backwashing filter as a street sweeper, and then these cartridge type ones as a whisk broom and a dustpan. It's going to get the fine stuff, but you got the street sweeper to get all the big stuff. So if you're watering your garden, you want to get rid of the chlorine disinfection byproducts and the chlorine, because that's killing microflora in the soil. Yeah. And so the rest of the stuff, let nature deal with it. Nature knows what goes where. And if you have active mycorrhizae, they're fascinating. Rhizae meaning rhizome as in a root, and myco as in a fungus. So what it is, it's a fungal neural network in the soil. In fact, the largest colony of mycorrhizae, I think, is in Canada somewhere. It's massive. It's
miles
like
and miles.
Huge. It's literally the nervous system of the soil. And it looks quite like a brain too. Just
so they can
reaching out.
So they can handle almost anything that they get thrown at them. Because I've been reading about how biology can handle radiation. They can handle plastics. So it's just a matter. So we don't. So the bottom line is that if we use a standard filtration system that carbon activated for the whole property and for the house, anything that slides past, as long as, because here's a secret, that the thing that's very important, because we're saying as long as saying that the biology would take care of it, but you also have to be constantly building the biology up. Over time, it will, because if so many things are working against it, it will. That's why you want to apply compost rich in the biology. You want to be constantly adding the biology to your place. So even with a water filtration system, you still have to apply the compost. That's what's going on in my business. Because I could just say, just change the water and walk away and leave it alone, and it'll be fine. It doesn't work that way. Because people have been using chemical fertilizers, all kinds of stuff on that place. Even if they were totally 100% organic, you'll find that the property really is not being taken care of. No, the biology is not really being taken care of. So the soil, the water is coming onto it. It's going to do absolutely nothing, not effective at all, because the plants will still die. That's been my experience.
There was an opportunity many years ago to do a test on a very large vineyard up in San Luis Obispo County. And we were really excited, thought this was going to happen. We were going to take a certain area of this vineyard, and normally what they do to mitigate this, the names fell out of my head. It's a particular fungus that will destroy vineyards. It wiped out Napa in the 1920s. It just completely devastated it. There was big outbreaks of it in France.
It's not Phytophthora, right?
No, it's not Phytophthora. I'll remember it in a second. It'll just pop in and I'll blurt it out. But anyways, what the growers are doing is they're fumigating the soil with Vicane. That is a structural pest control applicator product. It's what they use for termites when they tint the house. They're gassing the soil with that, pretty much sterilizing the soil.
Yay!
And we were going to do a grow test with these enzymes that were supposed to help mitigate that. Phylloxera is the name. That's what it's called, phylloxera. That's the nuisance fungus that wipes out vineyards. And doggone it, the ranch manager kind of said, no, we're not doing that. Nope. And couldn't figure out why, but later it was like, oh, I get it. He's part of that business, and he doesn't want anybody changing any of how he gets his income.
Don't fix the problem when I'm making money off the problem.
Yeah, like maybe the chemical sales bros have a fishing boat he gets to go on every year. Like if he quit that relationship, what's he going to do? Hang out with me and talk about biodynamics? That's not as fun as going fishing, I guess.
Guess not, right? It might make him live a lot longer, but
let's make this so simple. I think the main thing one of the things we want to get away from this what we want to get out of this show today, in my feelings, is that one, you definitely need to have a water filtration system for yourself and for the whole property. Your property will do much better. And you definitely have to constantly be bringing in the biology to the soil. You can't think the soil is going to take care of. I mean, I think if you take all humans off the planet, we'll be fine. The soil will get biology back together. But us humans, we like to produce toxins in everything we do. And so we constantly damaging the soil. We're pulling things away. We're not letting Mother Nature replace itself. So
Yeah.
get a water filter and get the best, make or get the best compost. That's one of the best ways to bring the biology back to the soil, your soil, you know. And then you can, you know, of course you have to control your water and all that things, you know, overwatering. Even if it's clean filtered water, microbes do not they're not too happy swimmers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it disrupts the nutrition though. So and then the other thing I believe we also need to learn, the compost itself. See, we're going to do a show on compost because not all compost is the same. People think they're making compost, and it's absolutely nothing in the compost when you send it off to the lab. Where are they going to get the minerals? So you have to have a minerally rich, biologically rich compost. Simple as that.
Well, it's got to be properly composted.
Yeah.
If you want to get any noticeable levels of humic and fulvic acid.
Yeah.
Which if you have high levels of humic and fulvic acid in the soil, and you also, you know, do a mineral assay, see what's going on in there, see what you're missing. But you can get rock dust. You can get fly ash from cement companies. Okay.
Fly ash.
Well, fly ash is what they use in when they make concrete. There's these giant kilns where they bake it as part of the process. But there's a byproduct of that when they're processing and grinding down the rock to the right size, when they're milling and machining the stone itself, they end up with a whole lot of this rock dust, really fine. Really fine rock dust.
Yeah,
that's what you want on the soil. That's what's coming down from the glaciers.
Yeah,
like the Hunza, those guys live to be 110 plus years old, healthy. They're up there climbing mountains and stuff. Have really high levels of this in the water.
Yeah, and also too, that water happens to be structured by nature. So let's just talk a little bit about structured water, because that's how Mother Nature gets all these minerally rich into the water, and the water gets transferred to all the biology. It's structured water. So I know you know a lot about structured water. So why don't you go ahead and tell the folks, why does Mother Nature do that?
Well, what structured water means is they're talking about the bond angle. If you look at a water molecule, it looks like a Mickey Mouse. It's got a big circle and two little ears on it. The bond angle of where the ears go.
Yeah.
They'll consider that at a certain angle is ideal. They're considering that that's the perfect structure. So that's one interpretation of it. The other, when you have several molecules that are clustered in a really interesting geometry, that's the other thing that you're describing with structured water.
Yeah.
The tricky part is, how do you know if it's structured or not?
Yeah.
How do you measure it? How do you have a control sample and another sample and go, yeah, this one's structured, other than just saying it is? And so I've been trying to figure out a way to prove that, but unless you have a lab set up and you want to spend money to have somebody analyze it, you're kind of winging it. You're kind of hoping it's there. So there's a lot of marketing and gimmicks and gadgets and gizmos, and I don't like wasting people's time or money. Does it work? Okay, so you have things like magnets. Okay. Oh, this magnet's going to soften my water. Well, good luck. Okay. I have an extremely high Gauss strength magnet on my water feed. And there's a white paper. That's empirical evidence. Somebody did a study that when you have a certain high enough magnetic field on the inlet line, it's going to change calcite, calcium and magnesium, into aragonite, which is a slightly different form of calcium and magnesium. And the aragonite is kind of slippery. It doesn't have a charge, or it wants to stick to things, so it'll basically slide down the drain. That's the same thing when you use a polyphosphate media. They talk about the salt-free water conditioners. It's something called template-assisted crystallization. What it does is it causes calcium and magnesium to stick to each other and form very tiny invisible specks, like less than 5 micron, and it just goes down the drain. And that's how that works. But as far as structured water goes, there's a couple of things that I like followed Victor Schauberger's work going way back when, before I got into residential water treatment. I was more into Dow.
German? Was he the German?
Austrian. He was a forester. He was a forester.
Yeah, he's the one that had the logs going down the river.
Exactly. And he also created some anti-gravitational equipment.
Devices,
about
right.
the Foo Fighters, not the band, but the flying disc. Okay.
Yeah.
That was Schauberger. Okay.
Yeah. He's the one that discovered how the water goes down the river and swirl and made the logs lighter.
Yes, yes. And also, we always thought those poor salmon, they work so hard swimming up those waterfalls. Well, guess what? The water swims the fish.
Yeah.
You ever get a foxtail in your sock, and if you pet your sock, it will cause the foxtail to go farther and farther. It propels it a different direction. Mm-hmm. So when a fish is swimming in water and the water's coming at it, the water actually compresses at the end and squirts the fish forward as it goes. Yeah. He also found that if you put a helical bead on the inside of a pipe, you're not going to have a massive giant pump in order to brutally push that water uphill. That helical bead over a certain distance will create its own velocity, just like the fish getting squirted by the water upstream. And why nobody's done that, I have no idea. Like, this was figured out.
Yeah, he was able to get double or quadruple the amount of logs going down the river, because the logs wouldn't sink anymore. The logs would just move straight down, and really cool.
His whole approach was pure biomimicry. He just noticed how nature behaves, and let's work with that. Let's help it do that.
Didn't he have a big swirly thing with the water, which just go like this and it goes like that as it flows through?
I saw that it was somebody that was inspired by him.
Oh,
there's a lot of different stuff I've seen out there, but basically that helical bead that I was mentioning. Okay, there's a guy in Canada, I forget his name off the top of my head, but he makes a really good one. I was making them by stacking quartz spheres, these glass marbles, inside of a piece of PVC pipe, put a cap on the end, and put a plumbing fitting on it, and plumb that in line. And there was a grow test that was done in Port Hueneme on some strawberries late in the season, after the whole strawberry season was done. All they did was they put one of these devices on the end of the feed line, and the field got saturated much more quickly than it normally did. And they noticed puddling, like, whoa, what's going on here? Well, they realized that device, that gizmo that they made, was breaking the surface tension of the water. And it's kind of a dumb term, but they were saying that it makes the water wetter. Well, it kind of does make the water wetter.
It's true.
And all it's doing is creating a circuitous path, one that's going to create little vortices, and you're going to break the surface tension of the water. Like in my pool guy days, you have this little layer of dirt over the top of the pool. Well, you flick a little bit of soap suds on it, it breaks the surface tension of the water, and all the dust goes right to the skimmer all by itself, because you broke the surface tension of the water. So creating a spin in the water is going to help break the surface tension, and that water is going to be more soluble and much happier, because water's a living thing. And that's going to encourage it. It's been banging hard right angles after getting chemically treated and agitated.
The right angles. So one of the things I learned about studying from this person, it was very interesting. He would say basically, the problem with the city, not so much the city water, but the piping, is they have all these right angles. You don't find these right angles in nature. And when water comes and makes a right angle, everything's the water is no longer structured water. The water no longer holds the nutrition. So you can water your plants with it. The water comes out. I don't know what happened, right? And it's really interesting, really interesting.
It seems really counterintuitive, but I've actually seen people do this with a soft copper and just make a bunch of kinks in it. You create a couple little dog legs, just no right angles, and you create a circuitous path in the
Yeah.
pipe, and that will break the surface tension, just like the helical bead that will create the
And it's
vortex.
amazing the way the water behaves. It's amazing especially how fast it can attach itself. I feel that the minerals are much more abundant in the structured water because it holds more. That's what I think. It
Well,
delivers more.
it's able to saturate much more readily.
Yeah, saturate. Right.
Yeah. And the other fascinating thing is fourth phase water. And if you look up Professor Gerald Pollack from Washington University, I love him as a teacher because he'll talk in plain English, and he's very engaging and fun. He's a great teacher.
He's been on our channel several occasions.
Oh, fantastic. He's awesome. I got a PDF of his book before it was in print. He spoke at JPL with a couple other water guys, and that's how I heard of him probably a dozen years ago. But yeah, he's such a cool guy. But what he's mentioned about fourth phase water, I'm of course like, well, how can we make fourth phase water, and how do you measure it? How do you prove you've made that? And so I'm still dabbling. I've got some equipment I'm working on, and
I'd love to do some work with you.
Say that again.
I'd love to do some work for you. My problem is I'm not an engineer. I can't make these things. I can talk to you about how we can, why it would work, but not so much make it. I'm trying to make my own. You know, I do gem elixirs. I try to get the energy of the gem into right into the water. So you have to structure the water to be open to the writing. It's like a hard drive. You have to clear the hard drive and then write to the hard drive.
Well, everybody's heard of Professor Emoto, and by simply praying over water, you will change that water.
Yeah.
You can freeze a sample of that and see how the crystals form in that.
Right. Image of water.
Yeah, and actually, if you look at frozen samples of reverse osmosis water, it's got a pretty decent structure to it. It's much more organized than water that did not go through an RO. And I've heard a lot of people bad mouthing RO, but it works. It's a really efficient way of removing things at an ionic level. That
when I drink all day long, I just add a little bit of salt, sea salt in it to add minerals in. That's what I drink.
Yeah, there you go. And as far as minerals in your body, drinking distilled water or drinking RO water, if you look up Robert Slovak, he's been on everybody's blog. He's kind of the daddy of reverse osmosis. He worked with a professor at UCLA. Robert Slovak was an aeronautical engineer, and he decided it'd be more fun to take stuff out of water than to build weapon systems. He'd sleep better at night if he wasn't helping kill people. Let's help people live better, actually. I mean, we wouldn't have frozen concentrate juice if it wasn't for membrane separation technology. The stuff's great. It works. And you can put minerals right back in. Now, I mentioned earlier about the oxidative state of which mineral, and is it actually going to get absorbed into your body? That's kind of a whole other area.
Yeah.
I do put remineralizing cartridges post-RO and put the minerals right back in. It basically neutralizes at 7.5, so you got pH neutral, and you've actually put mineral alkalinity in the water. We didn't temporarily change its state with electrodeionization, because you're going to have carbonic acid in there, and that thing that ran through your alkaline water machine, it could turn into CO2, and that high pH is going to creep down on you because the carbonic acid that's in there. So if you distilled the water first and got all the carbonic acid out, different story. It'll maintain that higher pH a lot longer, but you got to know how the water works and what's going on with it. And
Darryl, I think we're out of time. I think it's like
Darryl, I want to let you know. Did you know that Gerald has a new book out?
What's the latest one? I haven't followed him recently, but I try to keep up with the Global Water Conference in Sofia, Bulgaria that he's part of every year. I'll definitely check on his latest book, though. He's
Beyond Solid, Liquid, and Vapor.
Oh, wow. Awesome. I'll definitely get that.
Yeah, it was introduced. He was introducing it last year, and it's out now.
Oh, awesome. Fantastic. Yeah. He's such a cool guy. If you want to geek out and try to remember your math and your algebra and stuff, look up Chaplin. He's a professor at Oxford. He really digs into this whole structured water conversation at length, great detail, but it's really techie, hard to read stuff. But he's the guy too. And I'm currently working on things like cavitating the water and diffusing nano hydrogen in there in a way where it's going to be stable and it will stay in the water, and also nano oxygen. So that's something that I'm currently tinkering on.
Is that for us to drink or the soil?
Yeah, it's going to be for drinking water. I want to be able to dispense it into 5-gallon containers in a form that will stay. Your molecular hydrogen is not going to evaporate out because there were tiny nanobubbles that are very stable if you cavitate the water, which is a whole other technical conversation. Yeah. And so there's lots to be done. There's lots of cool, promising things.
Cool.
And
so we're going to have you back more often.
Okay.
I know I want you on my channel, and all I have to say is I'm really lucky to have you in my city because I can recommend my customers to you. Because there's so many fake people out there that do water filtration system, and I spent so much money, and you still are not getting half as much stuff as what you use. So far, I'm really impressed, and I understand that we need to have clean water, right? That's what we really, really, really need. Everything is based upon clean water, and that's our goal, to get the best clean water, and Mother Nature structures water. So as we learn how to, because we're very good at unstructuring it, we had better learn how to restructure it again, because that we want this. We don't want to create a new system. We want to make sure we're using her system. Yeah. So if you want more information on you, there's in the description you have your website. People can go to it there, and then this is also, I understand, being channeled on your simulcast on your website too, on your channel.
Yeah, we're going to put the show on my website.
Great.
Aquarius-H2O.com. Well, you got my web address and stuff up on your site.
And the links in the description, guys. You get the Facebook and the .com address. But Darryl, thank you so much for coming on. I've learned a tremendous amount, my friend.
Well, thank you. This was fun. I'm glad that we finally sat down and you finally corralled me, Andy. You've been bugging me for a long time.
Well, I'm just a gardener. See, I'm just a gardener. I just want to make those plants grow really well. The trees do happy. And when it comes to, I have my genius glasses on, so I understand a little bit of what you're saying, but even then, it's still beyond my knowledge, Barry, because I don't know about these things. I do know I want clean water. I want the way Mother Nature makes it, and then we have to have those trace minerals, and we got to get rid of the toxins. That's what this show is all about. It's all about the biology. Take care, guys.
All right. Thanks.
Hey, guys.
Have a good one.